There's a ruthless secret that separates the great from the ordinary. It isn't talent, it isn't luck, and it isn't timing. It's the ability to live, think, and act as if failure simply doesn't exist. Most people never discover this secret because they spend their lives bowing to fear. Fear of what might happen, fear of what others think, fear of losing what they never had in the first place. But the truth is, failure has no real existence until you give it one. Think about it. What is failure? It's a word we invented to describe an outcome we didn't want. But look closer, and you'll see it's only feedback, a message, a direction, a correction. There is no final defeat unless you decide to stop moving forward. The moment you erase the concept of failure from your vocabulary, you free yourself from the prison of hesitation. You stop waiting for the perfect time, and you start creating it. Every person who ever achieved something extraordinary began with one common mindset: they refused to acknowledge failure as an option. They acted with a quiet certainty that success was already theirs long before the world agreed. They behaved as if every action, no matter how small, was leading them to the inevitable result they envisioned. And because they believed it, the world eventually followed their belief. When you act as if failure doesn't exist, you give yourself permission to move freely. You stop second-guessing. You stop doubting. You begin to trust that every move, even the wrong ones, are part of a larger design pushing you toward growth. Every obstacle becomes fuel. Every setback becomes a signal saying, you're still in motion. Success, after all, is not a destination. It's the momentum you build when you refuse to stop. The mind is the architect of destiny. Whatever you believe deeply and consistently will eventually shape your external world. If you think in terms of limitation, you'll live limited. If you think in terms of possibility, life expands. Acting as if failure doesn't exist means conditioning your mind to think in possibilities only. To live in the future you want, not the one you fear. And yes, there will be moments when things don't go as planned. People will doubt you. Plans will crumble. Doors will close. But if you've already decided that failure is not real, then those moments lose their power. They can't stop you because you no longer see them as endings, only adjustments. You'll pivot, adapt, and continue forward while others freeze in disappointment. The secret is ruthless because it requires absolute faith. Faith in yourself. Faith in the process. Faith that what you desire already exists in potential, waiting for your belief to call it forth. That kind of faith isn't soft, it's fierce. It's the kind that wakes you early, drives you forward, and whispers, keep going, when everything else says quit. Act as if failure doesn't exist, and watch how differently you move. Watch how confidently you speak. Watch how the world begins to respond, not to what you say, but to who you've become. Because when you stop giving failure a place in your mind, success has nowhere else to go but toward you. There's a ruthless secret that separates the extraordinary from the average, the dreamers from the doers, the winners from the watchers. It's the ability to act as if failure simply doesn't exist. Most people never grasp this truth because they've been conditioned from childhood to fear mistakes, to play it safe, to move cautiously through life as if one wrong step could destroy everything. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Failure only exists if you give it meaning. It's an illusion, a mirage built by fear, and once you stop believing in it, your potential becomes limitless. The greatest limitation anyone will ever face is the one they build in their mind. When you decide that failure is not real, that it's merely feedback, a redirection, or a temporary result, everything about your behavior changes. You no longer hesitate when opportunity appears. You no longer wait for approval or reassurance. You act with confidence because you know that no matter what happens, it cannot destroy you. It can only shape you. Most people don't realize that the world bends to the strength of their conviction. What you believe deeply enough becomes the framework of your reality. If you walk into every situation convinced that success is already written, you begin to operate on a different level of energy. You think clearer, you move faster, you decide with authority, and people respond to that certainty. The world loves confidence because it is rare, and it is rare because most people have surrendered to doubt. Acting as if failure doesn't exist doesn't mean pretending challenges aren't real. It means recognizing that challenges are not endings, they are transitions. Every obstacle is a test of your faith in yourself. Every setback is a question the universe asks you, do you still believe? And when your answer is yes, when you continue to move forward despite uncertainty, you become unstoppable. This mindset creates a different rhythm in your life. You stop chasing validation and start creating momentum. The person who no longer fears failure becomes immune to criticism. They don't care how many times they fall because falling is part of moving forward. They don't care how long it takes because time is irrelevant when the outcome is inevitable. Acting as if failure doesn't exist gives you emotional freedom. It allows you to take risks others would never dare to take. It gives you the courage to say yes when everyone else says no. It pushes you to act with boldness when others hesitate, and that single act of courage often becomes the difference between living a life of regret and living a life of fulfillment. Life rewards those who move with certainty. Every great invention, every masterpiece, every breakthrough came from someone who refused to acknowledge failure. They saw only possibilities. They worked with persistence so fierce that even when results were slow, they never interpreted that as defeat. They simply adjusted, learned, and kept moving. That's the quiet power of those who act as if failure doesn't exist. They keep moving when others stop. They keep believing when others doubt. They keep building when others give up. The human mind is a remarkable force. It will deliver exactly what you believe is possible. If you believe failure is real, you'll experience it everywhere. But if you believe failure has no place in your world, you'll interpret every event, every delay, every setback as progress in disguise. That's how confidence is built, not through luck, not through talent, but through unshakable belief in your own direction. Once you remove the idea of failure from your thinking, you realize how much time you've wasted hesitating, worrying, or asking for permission to act. You understand that the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is the decision to move without fear. The person who acts as if failure doesn't exist doesn't wait for perfect conditions. They create them. They don't talk about what they plan to do. They do it, and then they adjust along the way. They know that real growth is not in getting it right the first time, but in continuing long enough for success to become the only possible result. Acting as if failure doesn't exist transforms your energy, your habits, and your results. It turns fear into curiosity, doubt into discipline, and uncertainty into opportunity. It is not arrogance. It is faith in motion, the kind of faith that builds momentum, that attracts the right people, that opens the right doors, that turns an ordinary life into something remarkable. The mind is the starting point of all success and all failure. Everything you experience in your outer world begins first as a pattern of thought in your inner world. The people who rise above mediocrity understand this truth deeply. They know the world mirrors their dominant beliefs. If you act as if success is inevitable, if you live and move with that conviction, you begin to attract the very circumstances that make it real. The way you think, speak, and carry yourself sends signals to life itself, and life always responds in kind. When your thoughts are fixed on possibility, your energy aligns with creation, not fear. Most people live in constant doubt, constantly feeding their minds images of what could go wrong. They create invisible barriers with their imagination, and then wonder why their progress feels so difficult. The secret lies in reversing that pattern, by choosing to imagine only what you want to experience, by acting as if success were already guaranteed. When you do, your mind begins to construct a path that leads directly to it. You start noticing opportunities you once ignored. You meet people who match your purpose, and you develop ideas that seem to appear out of nowhere. This is not magic. It is the natural consequence of alignment between your thoughts and your actions. The moment your inner world changes, your outer world must adjust to match it. Everything that happens to you is a reflection of how you see yourself. The person who believes in limitation will find proof of limitation everywhere, while the person who believes in abundance will see possibilities in every direction. That is why your belief system is the foundation of your destiny. What you hold in your mind with faith and persistence becomes your reality, no matter how impossible it may seem to others. The mind shapes the outcome long before the effort begins. If you wake each day expecting the best, if you see yourself already in possession of the life you desire, you begin to behave differently. Your speech changes, your posture changes, your energy changes. People sense that change long before you say a word. It's a quiet power, an invisible confidence that tells the world you are certain of your direction. That certainty is magnetic. It draws opportunity toward you like a gravitational force. Those who carry doubt repel success because doubt disrupts the signal. Every thought of fear, every moment of hesitation, every word of complaint weakens your connection to the outcome you desire. But when your thoughts are steady and confident, when your vision is clear and your belief unwavering, your world begins to reorganize itself in your favor. The truth is, you cannot outperform the image you hold of yourself in your own mind. If you think small, you act small. If you think boldly, your actions grow bold. Your life is simply a mirror, faithfully reflecting what you believe to be true. You can tell a person's mindset not by what they say, but by what consistently happens to them. Those who expect to fail, fail often. Those who expect to win find a way to win even when logic says otherwise. It is not luck. It is the law of the mind in motion. When you think and act as if failure doesn't exist, you remove the mental block that keeps most people stuck. You start living in a higher frequency of thought, one that resonates with success itself. You no longer worry about what might go wrong because your attention is fixed on what must go right. Your decisions become quicker, your focus sharper, and your resilience stronger. The more you train your mind to think in terms of success, the less room there is for fear or doubt. You begin to see obstacles as temporary and setbacks as lessons instead of punishments. The world changes not because circumstances become easier, but because your mind becomes stronger. That strength is built through repetition, by constantly reminding yourself that your thoughts create your reality. You must live from the inside out, not the outside in. Your results are the fruit, your thoughts are the roots. If you want to change the fruit, you must first change the roots. This is the essence of personal power, the ability to shape your world by mastering your mind. Once you realize that every thought is a seed that produces its own result, you begin to think with intention. You no longer entertain fear, because you know it plants the wrong seed. You focus only on the outcome you desire, and you act as though it were already true. That mental discipline transforms your life more than any luck, timing, or circumstance ever could. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act in spite of it. The people who achieve remarkable things are not those who never feel afraid. They are those who refuse to let fear dictate the course of their lives. Every great accomplishment begins at the edge of uncertainty, in that uncomfortable space where most people turn back. But those who move forward anyway, who act as if failure doesn't exist, discover that courage is a muscle. It grows stronger each time it is used. The moment you decide to step forward instead of shrinking back, something powerful happens inside you. You begin to build a sense of mastery over your own mind, and once you gain control over your thoughts, the world can no longer control you. Most people wait for courage to arrive before they take action. They think confidence comes first and then the doing follows. But the truth is the opposite. Confidence is the reward for action, not the prerequisite. The simple act of moving forward creates the courage you've been waiting for. Every time you take a step toward your goal, despite uncertainty or fear, you train your mind to trust yourself. You prove that you can handle discomfort, that you can stand in the middle of chaos and still move with purpose. Courage, then, becomes a habit, a mental decision you make again and again until fear loses its grip. Courage over circumstances is what separates those who live with intention from those who live by reaction. The person who acts despite fear gains power over their environment because they no longer rely on conditions to be perfect. They create their own conditions. They act even when others hesitate. They move when others doubt, and they continue when others stop. This consistency builds momentum, and momentum creates breakthroughs that seem almost supernatural to those who watch from the sidelines. But it isn't magic. It's the compounding effect of small, courageous actions repeated over time. When you act courageously, you tell life that you are ready for more. You declare through your behavior that you are not a victim of fear, but a master of it. Fear only has power when it is obeyed. Once you ignore it, it begins to fade. It's like a shadow, large and intimidating until you walk directly into it and realize there's nothing there. The moment you act, fear loses substance. The challenge that once looked enormous becomes manageable. The situation that once felt impossible reveals its opportunities. You begin to see that courage doesn't remove fear. It transforms it into focus. Those who think courage means not feeling afraid are mistaken. Courage means acknowledging fear, shaking hands with it, and moving forward anyway. It means saying, I see you, but you're not in charge today. That inner conversation, that private decision to act even when your heart races, is what builds the foundation of character. Every great success story is built on countless moments of invisible courage, quiet decisions made in the dark before the world ever saw the light of achievement. The people you admire most have simply learned to act when others freeze. Courage is contagious. When you begin to live boldly, others feel it. Your energy changes the room you walk into. People sense your conviction, and it gives them permission to act too. The world is full of people waiting for someone else to lead the way, someone else to prove it can be done. When you decide to be that person, when you move first and trust that the path will appear, you set a standard that others instinctively follow. That is the true power of courage. It not only changes your life, but the lives of everyone who witnesses it. Courage over circumstances means no longer letting fear disguise itself as logic. Most people call their fear being realistic. They rationalize it, justify it, and protect it, never realizing they've allowed fear to run their lives under another name. True courage is choosing to act when the excuses sound the loudest. It's waking up and saying, I may not know how this will end, but I'm going to begin anyway. That single decision breaks the illusion of failure, because failure cannot exist where action never stops. Once you understand that courage is not a special gift given to a few, but a choice available to everyone, you stop waiting for strength and start creating it. You discover that every time you move forward in faith, even with trembling hands, you become stronger than fear itself. Persistence is the quiet power that turns impossible dreams into inevitable realities. It is the force that keeps a person moving long after excitement fades, long after the applause stops, long after doubt begins to whisper that it's time to quit. When you decide that failure doesn't exist, persistence becomes your natural state of being. Every obstacle simply becomes another step on the way to success. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment transforms into feedback. Nothing can stop the person who refuses to stop. The world eventually bends to those who persist because consistency is stronger than talent, louder than luck, and more powerful than circumstance. Persistence is the invisible thread running through every great achievement. It is not always dramatic or visible. Often it's silent, patient, and unseen. It's the decision to rise again when there's no reason, to take one more step when no one is watching, to keep building even when nothing seems to work. The one who persists has learned the most valuable lesson in life, that progress is rarely visible in the moment, but always inevitable over time. The difference between those who dream and those who succeed is simple. The successful ones never stopped. When you remove the idea of failure from your thinking, persistence becomes effortless. There's no need to recover from disappointment when you never interpret an outcome as defeat. You understand that every setback contains a seed of knowledge, every struggle a hidden lesson. Each experience sharpens your skills, deepens your understanding, and strengthens your character. Most people quit because they mistake temporary difficulty for permanent impossibility. They see one door close and assume the path has ended, never realizing that persistence has the power to build new doors entirely. Those who keep going eventually reach a point where the world must respond to their determination. Success has no choice but to yield to persistence. Persistence is not stubbornness, it's faith in motion. It's the belief that consistent effort will eventually produce the result you seek. The person who persists refuses to be defined by circumstance. They move with quiet conviction, not because they see immediate results, but because they trust the process. They understand that growth happens underground, just like a seed before it breaks the surface. You can't always see progress while you're in it, but it's there, building strength, momentum, and readiness for the moment when success finally appears. Those who quit too early never see how close they were to breakthrough. Persistence ensures that you will. The longer you stay in motion, the more momentum you build. Each small effort compounds, creating an unstoppable force. The universe seems to test persistence, throwing distractions and disappointments in your path, as if asking, "Do you still want this?" Most people answer by giving up. But those who persist give their answer through action. They keep showing up. They keep doing the work. They keep believing. Even when there's no proof to justify their faith, that kind of persistence is rare because it demands patience in a world obsessed with instant results. Yet it's that very patience that builds empires, crafts masterpieces, and creates legends. Every great story of success is a story of someone who kept going when others stopped. It's the story of inventors who failed 1,000 times before discovering what worked, of writers whose words were rejected before they were celebrated, of dreamers who stood alone before the world finally recognized their vision. Persistence transforms time into an ally instead of an enemy. It teaches you that success is not about speed, it's about endurance. The person who refuses to quit always outruns the one who starts strong but fades when things get difficult. Persistence doesn't mean forcing outcomes, it means showing up daily, doing what needs to be done, and trusting that your effort will eventually produce its reward. It means being loyal to your vision even when results are invisible. Each day of persistence sends a message to life itself that you will not retreat, that you will not break, that you are willing to continue until the goal becomes reality. This kind of unwavering consistency reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to succeed and start seeing yourself as someone destined to. The act of persistence transforms who you are. You become more disciplined, more resilient, more focused. You develop a kind of inner certainty that no failure, no criticism, no delay can shake. Once you reach that point, success becomes inevitable. Not because the path gets easier, but because you no longer stop walking. Who you believe yourself to be determines the limits of what you can achieve. Identity is the root of destiny. Every action, every decision, every result in your life flows from the image you hold of yourself in your mind. When you begin to act as if failure doesn't exist, you begin to reshape that image entirely. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to become successful and start seeing yourself as someone who already is. That subtle shift changes everything about how you move through the world. The way you think, speak, and behave begins to align with the person you believe yourself to be, and before long the world adjusts to match that belief. The power of identity is quiet but absolute. Whatever image you hold inside is what life will mirror back to you. If you see yourself as limited, uncertain, or undeserving, no amount of external effort can override that belief. But if you see yourself as capable, confident, and destined for success, your actions will naturally begin to prove it true. Identity is not fixed, it's created. Most people spend their lives trapped in old versions of themselves, versions built from past mistakes, disappointments, and fears. They keep repeating the same patterns because they've never upgraded the story they tell themselves about who they are. The person who decides to act as if failure doesn't exist breaks that cycle. They begin living from the future instead of the past. They ask themselves, who would I be if I knew I couldn't fail? And then they start acting like that person now. Every decision, every choice, every moment of effort begins to reflect that new self-image, and with time it becomes reality. The mind cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is actually experienced. When you consistently act as if success is inevitable, your subconscious mind accepts it as truth and starts aligning everything within you to fulfill it. Identity creates momentum. Once you decide who you are, your actions require less effort because they flow from that identity naturally. A person who sees themselves as disciplined doesn't need to force discipline. It's simply what they do. A person who sees themselves as successful doesn't chase success. They attract it because their energy, confidence, and focus all radiate from that belief. The world responds to self-image long before it responds to words or intentions. People sense certainty and they gravitate toward it. Opportunities appear because you act like the kind of person who deserves them. Success follows because your identity no longer allows anything less. When your self-image expands, your possibilities expand with it. Life rises to meet the standard you set for yourself. Most people try to change their results without changing their identity, and that's why their efforts collapse under pressure. They use temporary motivation to fight against a permanent self-concept. The only lasting transformation happens when you upgrade your identity first. You become the kind of person who naturally produces the results you want. The external world becomes a reflection of your internal certainty. Acting as if failure doesn't exist is not pretending. It's practicing alignment with the identity of the person you are becoming. The person who believes in their inevitable success begins to move differently. Their speech carries more weight, their decisions are made with clarity, and their actions hold consistency. Even in the face of uncertainty, they remain calm because their self-image does not include defeat. They don't see obstacles as personal attacks. They see them as natural parts of the process that refine their strength. Identity is the anchor that keeps you steady when life shakes you. When you believe deeply in who you are and what you stand for, no external circumstance can make you question it. This is why so many people fall short. They try to achieve a level of success that doesn't match their internal picture. They chase goals that their subconscious doesn't yet believe they deserve. But when you act as if failure doesn't exist, you close that gap. You begin to live from the identity of success itself. You stop asking, can I do this? And start saying, this is who I am. Every time you think, speak, or act from that place, you reinforce it. You carve that belief deeper into your subconscious until it becomes unshakable. Once your self-image aligns fully with the life you desire, success stops being something you chase and becomes something you naturally express. The outer world simply becomes a reflection of the inner transformation you have already claimed as your own. Faith in motion is the foundation of every lasting success. It is the invisible energy that fuels action when logic says stop. The inner knowing that moves a person forward even when the outcome is unclear. Acting as if failure doesn't exist requires more than positive thinking. It demands faith expressed through movement. Faith that your actions matter, that your vision is real, and that the process is leading you somewhere meaningful, even when there is no visible proof. This kind of faith is not fragile, it is fierce. It is built through repetition, through the decision to keep going one more day, one more step, one more effort beyond what comfort allows. It transforms hesitation into confidence and uncertainty into direction. When you act with faith, your energy changes. You begin to operate from conviction rather than fear. You stop waiting for guarantees and start trusting the quiet voice within that says, keep going. Faith doesn't require evidence, it creates it. Every time you move forward with belief, life responds. Doors open that weren't visible before. People appear who can help you. Opportunities unfold that seem almost designed for you. What most call coincidence is simply faith in motion arranging the world around your intention. The act of believing with action ignites forces that dormant minds never experience. Faith without motion is daydreaming, but motion without faith is struggle. Together they form a power that cannot be denied. Many people live in paralysis because they wait for proof that their efforts will work. They want assurance before they begin, forgetting that assurance is the reward, not the requirement. Faith is beginning when you can't see the end. It's trusting that the path will reveal itself only after you take the first step. Those who master this principle live differently. They no longer overanalyze or hesitate. They move, they try, they adjust, and in doing so, they create progress. Action taken with faith is never wasted. Even mistakes become valuable because they lead to insight and experience. The only real failure is inaction. Faith in motion eliminates that possibility entirely. Faith transforms the ordinary person into an unstoppable force. It doesn't remove challenges, but it changes how you meet them. Instead of retreating at the first sign of difficulty, you see problems as invitations to grow stronger. You start to view obstacles as proof that you are on the right path. The greater your faith, the greater your ability to persist. And persistence, powered by faith, always produces results. Faith gives you patience when nothing seems to work, clarity when confusion surrounds you, and courage when doubt tries to creep in. It reminds you that results are not the measure of worth, the act of continuing is. There comes a point in every journey where the world tests your belief. Things slow down, doors close, and silence replaces momentum. This is where most people give up, not realizing that this moment of stillness is where faith does its greatest work. The unseen progress is often the most important kind. It's the quiet period where the roots of your effort deepen, preparing to sustain the weight of what's coming. Faith in motion is what carries you through those invisible seasons. It keeps you steady when others lose heart. It gives you the strength to hold the vision even when results seem distant. The person who acts as if failure doesn't exist moves with calm assurance, not because they are certain of the outcome, but because they are certain of themselves. They understand that faith is not blind. It's focused. It sees beyond current circumstances into what can be created through persistence and belief. Each day of action reinforces that certainty, building a rhythm of progress that compounds over time. Soon, the results that once seemed out of reach begin to materialize. What others call luck is simply the visible expression of invisible faith. Faith in motion reshapes the way you think, feel, and act. It silences the inner critic and amplifies the inner creator. It teaches you to trust the process, to let go of the need to control every variable, and to move forward with quiet strength. The mind that believes without doubt and acts without hesitation becomes a magnet for success. The world bends toward those who live with unwavering faith because faith transmits a vibration of certainty that life cannot resist. When your belief becomes so strong that failure no longer has a place in your thinking, every action you take carries power. You stop chasing results and start attracting them. You begin to experience the truth that faith in motion doesn't just lead to success. It becomes success itself.